Before the gangs ruled the streets, one man dared to rule the chaos. His name was Cyrus. And for one night, one unforgettable night, every soldier in New York believed in peace. But peace has enemies. And when the bullet fell, the dream fell with it.
Order in the chaos, fire in the rain. We move as one.
They say New York was dying long before the Gramercy Riffs were born. The Bronx burned, Harlem cracked, and Brooklyn rotted from the inside out. The cops had lost the streets, and the people had lost their faith. But when chaos becomes the law, someone always rises to rewrite it. From the heart of Manhattan, where shadows fell between brownstones and broken streetlights, came an idea disguised as a man. His name was Cyrus. He wasn't like the warlords who came before him. He didn't shout for blood or money. He spoke of unity, of peace, through discipline. To him, the gangs of New York weren't scum. They were tribes waiting to be reborn. In 1970, there were over 60 major gangs scattered across the boroughs. Destroyers, Turnbulls, Furies, Boppers, Savage Huns, each carving the city into pieces. But only one dreamed of bringing them all under a single flag, the Gramercy Riffs. The Riffs began as a small brotherhood, martial artists, street philosophers, and ex-brawlers, led by Cyrus's cousin, Masai, a quiet enforcer with eyes like stone. They trained in abandoned warehouses and subway tunnels, not to fight, but to control the fight. They learned order before war. And over time, their code became legend, and Cyrus became its prophet. Where others saw the city's fall, he saw a rebirth, a world where gangs could rule their own domain if they learned to move as one. To the desperate, that sounded like salvation. To the powerful, it sounded like rebellion. They called it the Gramercy Doctrine, a dream carved out of fire and fear. And it began, not with weapons, but with words. Can you dig it? The night that phrase echoed across Van Cortlandt Park, the city held its breath. But before that night, before the shot that shattered everything, came a legend built in silence, the story of how chaos learned to march in step. They say before there were riffs, there was only noise. New York's heartbeat was violence, echoing through stairwells, bars, and burnout parks. But somewhere in the middle of Gramercy, a small dojo lit up the dark. The man who ran it was Masai, a quiet veteran from the Harlem blocks who believed fists meant nothing without mind. He called his students the disciplined. They called him Masai the monk. They weren't a gang, not yet. They were a philosophy class in sneakers and patched GI jackets, reciting words like unity, loyalty, balance. But when the city started eating itself alive, that dojo became a fortress. The 1977 blackout was the city's breaking point. Looters tore through downtown. Police radio channels went silent. And in the flicker of that chaos, the disciplined became the Riffs. Cyrus was only 21 then, a street poet turned soldier. Masai saw something in him, not power, but faith. Cyrus spoke with rhythm, conviction, in that rare fire that made even killers listen. Where Masai saw discipline, Cyrus saw destiny. He redefined the meaning of gang. No longer a crew, but an army of belief. No longer turf, but territory of the mind. By 1975, the Riffs had grown from 15 to 500. Their symbol, an orange circle within a black sun, was seen as a warning and a promise. They trained in silence. They punished with purpose. They ruled not through fear, but through control. Other gangs mocked their formality until they vanished. One by one, those who mocked the Riffs ended up joining them. The rumor was, if you stood in Gramercy Park after dark, you could hear them training, synchronized, like soldiers of an invisible kingdom. The newspapers called the city's violence a plague, but the Riffs called it preparation. And in that silence, they built an empire of order beneath the skin of chaos. By 1976, the Gramercy Riffs had stopped being a gang. They were a system, an empire of order, built from the bones of chaos. And at its center stood Cyrus, calm, precise, unbreakable. He wore no jewelry, carried no weapon, but when he spoke, even killers fell silent. They called him the Voice. His sermons weren't about blood or money. They were about numbers. 60,000 soldiers, he said. 60,000 soldiers standing as one. No man, no cop, no army could stop that. And it wasn't fantasy. By 1978, the Riffs commanded loyalty from every borough. From the Boppers to the Hurricanes, every gang paid tribute or respect, and in return, they were left alone. Cyrus built his empire like a general. Masai, his cousin, became his second, head of discipline and recruitment. Beneath them, ranks formed like gears in a machine. Lieutenants, each commanding a sector of the city. Sergeants, who maintained contact with satellite gangs. And scouts, silent runners, moving messages through the underground. Their income was clean: gambling halls, music clubs, protection contracts with small businesses the NYPD ignored. To the press, they were invisible. To the streets, they were gods. But not everyone believed in peace. While Cyrus preached unity, the city burned through scandal. The Son of Sam killings, police corruption, protests after the blackout. Fear became the new currency, and the Riffs traded it better than anyone. They began appearing in neighborhoods dressed in orange and black martial uniforms. Part monk, part soldier. Their movements rehearsed, their silence terrifying. Where cops brought chaos, the Riffs brought calm. To civilians, they were mythic saviors. To rival gangs, they were executioners of a new world. But the bigger Cyrus's dream grew, the more enemies it drew. Police intel units started calling him a domestic revolutionary. Old-school gangs whispered that the Riffs were selling out to City Hall. And even inside his own ranks, doubt began to spread. Was this peace or control? Cyrus didn't care. He believed the city's sickness demanded one cure: order. And in 1978, he began planning his final sermon. The Conclave, a gathering of every gang in New York City, a night where war would end and unity would begin. Cyrus and Masai sat together on the roof of an abandoned community center overlooking Gramercy Park. The night was still, one of those rare, breathless New York nights when even the sirens fell silent. Below them, recruits trained in perfect formation, hundreds of silhouettes moving in rhythm, torches flickering like living metronomes. Cyrus watched, pride in his eyes. The machine he'd built was alive. Cyrus, you see it, brother? The city's changing. The chaos is learning to listen. Masai didn't answer right away. His gaze stayed fixed on the men below. Faces half lost in smoke and firelight, moving like worshipers instead of soldiers. Masai, they're listening, yeah, but not all of them understand. Discipline and devotion ain't the same thing. Cyrus smiled faintly, then placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. Cyrus, that's why I need you to watch when I can't. Masai nodded, silent, then reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a pair of dark-lensed sunglasses. Cheap, military surplus, the kind used by men who worked in shadows. He turned them in his hands for a long time. Masai, man can't see everything clear. Sometimes the light blinds more than it shows, he slid the shades on. Under the flickering torchlight, they looked almost ceremonial, like armor for the soul. From that night on, he never took them off in public. They became his mask, the barrier between belief and doubt, faith and protection. Behind the glass, no one could read him. Behind the glass, Masai became the guardian of the prophet. They say that on the night of the conclave, New York stood still. It was summer, June 13th, 1979. The subways rumbled like distant drums as thousands moved in silence toward Van Cortlandt Park. Not cops, not soldiers, gangs. Every color, creed, and cut of the city's underworld, from Harlem to the Bronx, from Brooklyn to Coney Island, all walking as one. The numbers were biblical. 60,000 soldiers, just as Cyrus had promised. No weapons, no fighting, only the sound of footsteps and breathing. Masai moved through the crowd like a general inspecting his ranks. Calm, unreadable, making sure no crew broke the truce. Above the park, torchlight flickered against graffiti banners that read, "Can you dig it?" And when Cyrus stepped up to speak, the city itself seemed to hold its breath. He raised his hands, palms open to the sky. No microphone, no megaphone, just voice.
Can you count, suckers? I say
He laid out the vision. No more street wars, no more cops ruling their fate. One army, one command. The gangs would govern themselves. It wasn't madness, it was math. 60,000 soldiers to 20,000 cops. The numbers spoke louder than bullets. The crowd erupted. Even his rivals nodded. And for a single heartbeat, the city believed. Then came the gunshot. Cyrus's body twisted as the bullet tore through his chest. The roar turned to chaos. And in the darkness, Luther, leader of the rogues, grinned. He hadn't just killed a man, he'd killed a dream. Sirens screamed in the distance. The crowd broke. Panic swallowed the park, and Luther's voice cut through the night.
That's him! That's the warrior! He shot Cyrus!
Just like that, the truce shattered. Masai's men closed in around their fallen leader. Cyrus lay dying, eyes open, blood pooling beneath the torchlight, painting the ground orange and red. His final words were a whisper lost in the smoke. Keep the order. Masai said nothing. He only stared into the flames, knowing that the war had already begun. The park breathed like a living heart. Thousands of colors pulsing under torchlight. At the center stood Cyrus, arms open to the night, his voice rolling across rooftops and treetops like thunder. Cyrus, one gang could run this city. The words hit Cleon like scripture. Tonight he wasn't just a warrior. He was a witness. He believed. He saw the vision, a code stronger than fear. Behind him, Swan and Cochise held the younger warrior steady, nervous, proud. Cleon never looked away from the stage. Then, a flash, a gunshot. It shattered the rhythm of the crowd. Cyrus jerked. For one suspended heartbeat, the entire city stood still. Then the night erupted. A scream ripped through the chaos. It was him! The warrior! Cleon spun, hands raised, pleading with the mob. Cleon.
He shot Cyrus!
Don't get crazy, I didn't do nothing.
But the Riffs were already moving. A tidal wave of orange robes, surging like wildfire. Masai's lieutenants hit first. Fists, fury, devotion, blindness. Cleon tried to speak, tried to reach them. And the first blow smashed into his jaw. He hit the ground. Boots, fists, rage. His vest split open in the dirt. His voice vanished beneath the roar of the crowd. In his final flicker of sight, he saw Cyrus lifted above the mob, not as a leader, but as a martyr. Cleon smiled through blood. One word left, one truth. Together. The lights of the conclave sputtered, then died, and in their holy confusion, the Riffs destroyed the only man who still believed.
Riffs! Yeah, right! Who are the warriors? I want them all. I want all the warriors. I want them alive if possible, if not, wasted. But I want them. Send the word.
When Cyrus fell, the streets fell with him. The Gramercy Riffs no longer moved like monks. They moved like hunters. Masai took command before the blood on Cyrus's shirt had even dried. Gone was the preacher's tone. Gone was the dream of unity. Masai ruled through silence and retribution. The first Riff edict under his command was simple. Find the killers, no mercy within hours. The bounty spread like wildfire. The Riffs called every gang in the city to arms. Posters, whispers, coded graffiti, all carrying one message. The warriors did it. It wasn't about proof. It was about control. Masai knew the truth might never matter. What mattered was fear. He turned the Riffs network into an intelligence machine. Scouts became spies. Lieutenants became executioners. Smaller gangs began to vanish, some for hesitation, others for doubt. Even within the Riffs, the balance began to crack. Cyrus had ruled with faith. Masai ruled with fear. His sharpest lieutenant, a strategist named Jonah Cypher Bell, began to question the mission. To Cypher, the real enemy wasn't the warriors. It was the fracture of faith. He traced the whispers, stories that pointed to the rogues. But Masai wouldn't listen. Masai, faith doesn't need proof. Faith needs order. Masai returned to the old dojo, the birthplace of the Riffs. He trained alone, shadows moving with him, whispering the words that haunted him still. Keep the order. But deep down, he knew the truth. Order had become vengeance, and vengeance always devours its own. The city had stopped breathing. Cyrus's words still echoed through tunnels and alleys. Can you dig it? But now the echo carried grief instead of hope. Every gang in New York waited for the Riffs to speak. Masai led his army through the sleepless streets, a slow, silent march of all black moving toward the sea. They didn't shout, they didn't chant, they simply moved. The city opened before them, like a wound that needed closing. By dawn, they reached Coney Island. The surf hissed against the sand as the first light broke the horizon. At the edge of the water stood the warriors, Swan, Cochise, Vermin, Rembrandt. Their vests torn, their faces carved with exhaustion, but lit with survival. Beside them knelt Luther, wristbound, his manic grin long gone. Masai stopped a few paces away, the sunrise glinting off his shades. His voice came low, steady and heavy as stone. Masai, you made us spill the blood of our own. A man named Cleon. He believed in what Cyrus preached. He tried to calm the crowd, and we beat him down like an enemy. The Riffs behind him lowered their heads. Masai stepped closer to Luther, whose breath came in shallow bursts. Masai, his death is on your hands. His and the voices. Luther trembled. He tried to smile, but the smile broke halfway. Masai turned toward the warriors standing in the surf. The rising sun burned across his lenses. In one reflection, Luther knelt. In the other, Swan stood unflinching. Masai, Cleon's spirit walks with you now. That's the only justice left in this city. He faced the sea again. Masai, the Riffs say the warriors are good. Real good.
You warriors are good. Real good. The best.
You brought ruin on the voice of peace. He raised his hand. The circle moved. Luther's scream tore through the wind, once, then vanished beneath the roar of the surf. When the tide rolled back, there was nothing left but footprints and a single silver ring half buried in the sand. Masai didn't look down. He turned to the warriors, silent, waiting, for one long breath. No one moved. Masai, the streets are yours again. Keep 'em clean. Swan nodded. The warriors stepped back as the Riffs turned toward the sunrise. The ocean caught the light. Gold, crimson, endless. And for the first time since the Conclave, the city was quiet. Cyrus's dream hadn't died. It had only changed hands. They say that when the dust finally settled, New York didn't remember the truth, only the feeling. Cyrus became legend. His words turned into graffiti hymns. His vision, whispered in alleyways, painted on train cars, echoed in songs sung by ghosts. The police called him a criminal, but the streets called him a prophet. Masai became the keeper of the fire. He never tried to replace Cyrus, only to protect his name. But the price of devotion is heavy. The more he tried to hold the city together, the more it slipped through his hands. By 1980, the streets had changed. Crack hit the corners. New powers rose, harder, colder, hungrier, and the Riffs could no longer control what they'd inspired. Some say Masai disbanded the Riffs quietly, sent his men home, told them to live normal lives. Others say they went underground, an invisible brotherhood still watching, still waiting. But those who were there remember one night, a secret gathering in the old Gramercy dojo. Candles lined the walls. A torn Riffs banner hung behind Masai. He placed Cyrus's medallion, cracked, blood-stained, on the floor. Masai, he gave us order, not to rule, but to remember. That night, the Riffs weren't soldiers. They weren't rulers. They were believers. Each man recited the 7 principles, the code Cyrus left behind, their creed, their scripture, their salvation. And though time buried the gangs, the name Riffs endured. Every time a city rebuilds from chaos, every time order rises from ruin, the streets whisper one name, Cyrus. If you believe stories like this still matter, legends of unity, loyalty, and the fight for something bigger than yourself, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me which gang story you want uncovered next. The city never sleeps, and neither do the streets.
Not to rule, to remember.